Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Rock and Roll Religion, where we got an interesting one for you today. A band with two names. Um, and here to do that, we have the Sentinel with us.
Hail.
How's it going, my dude?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing all right. The Fan Expo this weekend kind of took it out of me a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're here to finish out our series on the first wave of black metal with Hellhammer and Celtic Frost. They're the same band, roughly. They've had some lineup changes and stuff like that, and they've changed names. But the sound, I think, is really similar. It's just one didn't have any kind of production behind it at all. In Hellhammer hang on, we can put it up here. No, don't do that. With Apocalyptic Rays, the only album by Hellhammer.
And Hellhammer, their personnel. Who made up the personnel in Hellhammer? And are they different than uh, Celtic Frost?
Well, the singer was really the impetus behind the whole band for Hellhammer and Celtic Frost. It's the same guy, guy called Tom Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
That's his stage name, anyway. What his actual name is nobody's business. But Hellhammer, this album is extremely raw, extremely it's what you would expect to hear coming out of a punk rock or metal club in the early '80s, which is where this came from.
And what year was this released?
This was released in '84. I think it was recorded in 1980.
Wow. Okay.
By the time this album had even been recorded or had been actually released, the band was already known as Celtic Frost.
So the band dissolved, released this album.
They dissolved and then reformed as Celtic Frost for the most part. I think most of the musicians are the same.
Okay. And how does Hellhammer stack up to, let's say, the first Celtic Frost album that you're going to talk about in just a little while?
Well, I mean, it's much more raw. It's much less produced.
Yeah, typical black metal album. Lo-fi production.
Yes,
dark.
and although I think it does a detriment to the band in terms of how lo-fi it is. A lot of early black metal albums are kind of lo-fi, like Venom or Bathory, but you can still hear the individual instruments. This one is more akin to the early second wave of black metal in that it's really, it goes beyond like lo-fi production into poor production. In that it kind of straddles the line between black metal and hardcore punk. And I know a lot of people will claim that, like, oh yeah, well, punk, lo-fi production is part of the sound, and it is. It absolutely is. But this album right here is, it sounds like a live album.
So was it recorded? Was it recorded in like with everybody playing together, or did they actually individually
Yes, it was.
engineer?
No, it was recorded as I think ensemble.
Wow. So it's no. I'm not surprised they didn't closely record each instrument, and so what I'm hearing is that they just got in a room and just recorded like you would record a live album, as you were saying.
Well, I mean, if you want to play it in the background as we're talking, if you have some headphones or whatever,
Sure.
it sounds like a old school punk. And it sounds interesting coming out of Switzerland. Because Switzerland is not known for, being a huge metal hub or anything like that. England kind of started the black metal trend with Venom, and then Bathory kind of perfected it a year later. These guys kind of got caught in the middle, and they are heavily influenced by Venom. But this album, I would say, if you're a hardcore black metal fan and or a punk aficionado, like the old hardcore punk scene, this is an album really worth listening to.
I just listened to a couple, like 10 to 20 seconds of like two songs, Triumph of Death and The Third of the Storms. If you never saw this album, Mark, you would assume they were a fucking hardcore band or punk band.
Yeah, punk band. The best song I think on this record, and you should probably listen to it before we move on, is Horus Aggressor.
Yes. Okay.
It's kind of got the most thrash and black metal riff to it. And I will say the bass on this thing is massively overblown. While he's doing that, I have, let's see who's in the chat. Hail Lord Thoth. Praise be Lord Thoth, in fact. Dragon Master, how you doing? Sorry we're an hour late. That's on me. Just coming back from Boston Fan Expo, so yeah, I'm a little discombobulated. It was a great weekend, though. Got to see a lot of local guys that I hang out with a fair amount, and then I got to meet a lot of people from outside of New England who came either up or down from where they're at to come to Boston Fan Expo, which was really cool. So
Yeah.
I was glad to meet everybody.
That sounds cool. What's up, Lord Thoth? How's it going? What's up, Dragon Master?
Praise be Lord Thoth.
Hail. I was just listening to Horus Aggressor, and compared to the previous two songs that I just kind of scanned through, this one actually has the construction of a early black metal song.
That's why I recommended it. Is like
Great
that
suggestion.
was kind of one of those like, oh, okay. It's got that tremolo picking. It's got that deep, that deep ballsy riff to it.
Also, just noticing how the drums are set up and how the song is constructed. They're going for more of a kind of a creepy ambiance.
Yeah.
The song.
Well, I think it's just a raw ambiance of they just recorded that demo. And you can also, in a couple of songs, I think on that record, hear the guitars kind of go out of sync. Like he kind of falls off pace with the other instruments, which it's a mark against them because that's not good. But that's also how authentic this recording is that you're getting everything, including the shit that people usually either cut out or edit out of the recording in terms of some of the lines that you get, like the hum from the amplifiers
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
stuff.
that's kind of classic. Actually, a lot of people do the dead humming from the amplifiers. So I don't want to say, oh, that's definitely traditional black metal. Motorhead did that all the time. So
Well, I mean, that's not Motorhead didn't include the hum from the amplifier. They included the feedback
oh, that's okay.
from the guitars.
Sometimes I just can't tell the difference.
It's hard to tell unless you're an actual guitar player that plays with an amp especially a tube type amp all the time, like I do. And like especially that like kind of real high pitched kind of wail in the background of a lot of it is just the guitar going to feedback because the amp is looking for signal
Mm-hmm.
and the guitar is giving it to it, but there's no actual vibration going on in the strings to feed any kind of actual signal into the amp. So it just kind of goes with this high pitched scream. Because the pickups are still doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a very interesting phenomenon, and it's a mark of a very skilled guitarist who, like Eddie Van Halen, did a lot of this, where he would kind of incorporate the feedback loop into his playing style. It's hard to demonstrate without actually playing something and then going to feedback.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But that's what that sound is.
Okay.
But no, on the first record, they are basically just this might as well be a live recording because I don't think they edited anything out. There's absolutely zero production that's put on this on this album, period. Which is also one of the reasons that they reformed as a different band after this record. Is that it was good for hardcore punk fans and early black metal fans, except black metal didn't really exist yet. You had Venom, you had Bathory, and that was about it. And I think as of this year that we're talking about here, you may have had the first Merciful Fate record. So we're talking entirely unpioneered territory here.
All right.
And Hellhammer was looking to.
So Hellhammer was more of like a statement than an actual idea for a direction.
Well, I mean, I think this was what they wanted the band to be. It was just the market didn't. I actually kind of wish they had gone down this route and just kind of and They did kind of go down this route and polish the sound, but Hellhammer's first release got so panned and so criticized publicly that I think they decided to try to move into a new band and change out some members.
That must have been a hell of a critical panning.
Yeah, it was. And
it's like I can't imagine somebody telling me your album sucks so much it would motivate me to dissolve the band and start an entirely new one to escape that stigma.
That's kind of what happened.
Wow. And now it's considered a masterpiece.
I mean, this first record is considered kind of like, among black metal fans, it's kind of one of those, it's a deep cut. It's not one of those like, this is like a seminal record for black metal.
Yeah, so it's not like it didn't get its cult following until later, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that that it gained a cult following later in life.
Okay.
And especially once Celtic Frost became a thing, which is when we move into this album, which is Morbid Tales. And this has all of the production that the first album lacked. And it's really just like, this is what the first album should have been in terms of production quality and in terms of like, how to put this? It's a lot heavier than the first album, but it's also a lot cleaner.
Yeah, I was just quickly scanning through it, and you're right. It is the polished, more focused, more. The songs are more constructed and have a better idea of where to go.
Yeah.
Than Hellhammer does. And again, if you didn't see the cover, if you didn't know who the band was, you'd assume they were in the same market as Discharged, Black Flag, DRI. It sounds like that hardcore.
I mean, there is a very, very thin line between hardcore punk and black metal.
Yeah, I guess so. I had no idea early black metal had such a punk approach to it. I thought most of it would always sound like Bathory or.
If you listen to like early Venom.
See, with Venom, I thought, okay, they have a definite thrash kind of influence.
Well, because they influenced thrash.
Oh, I see.
They actually came first.
Yeah, I know.
Black metal actually predates thrash in a lot of ways. But they also had a huge impact on the punk scene. And like you can kind of hear it here with Celtic Frost, where it's kind of that line between hardcore punk and black metal. Especially with that heavy bass work. But these guys, the whole reason we're covering this band is Celtic Frost and Hellhammer as an ancillary, essentially, was a huge influence on black metal as a genre. It would be like similar influence to, say, Venom's influence on Slayer. because like you were saying with the early thrash influences, well, that came from Venom. Whether it be Metallica, whether it be Slayer. I haven't dug deep into Anthrax's origins, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were into the punk movement at the time, because that's where their riffs kind of come from.
I listened to early Anthrax. I'm a little familiar with it. Yeah, I would say some a fistful of metal and maybe a little
They're
bit of
they're a lot
spreading the
more
disease.
punk influenced than the other thrash metal bands.
Okay.
I would say, especially in their later stuff, like Got the Time and stuff like that, like or Antisocial.
Oh, definitely.
Like that is just straight up punk. And that's also a thing with some of the German black metal bands, like Sodom, who's another band that we've done on this channel. Unfortunately, we'll have to redo that episode because YouTube took it down. Because it's the one time I actually allowed music. And we got hit for the copyright strike. But you can kind of hear where punk and metal are sort of connecting in the sound of this record, especially.
Like punk coming in, metal coming in, and creating something that would be the basis of black metal.
Of black metal going forward, yeah. And it still has that raw quality to it, where like you could easily hear these guys sounding like this live.
Yeah, I would imagine. Like I said, I was just scanning through some of it, and it sounds good.
No, it's a great record, and I would heavily recommend that if you're even a younger metalhead looking into some of the older stuff, if you're a black metal fan, these guys are well worth your time because it influences everything going forward. And hey, Commander Phil, how's it going, man? But no, I mean, let's look at the track listing here. Here we are. And especially in terms of style, they are very black metal at this point.
Oh, this imagery right here is straight up black metal.
Yeah.
It's super black metal.
I mean,
is this like the first time you saw like full on face paint like this?
I think it is. I think this is one of the guys. These are one of the guys who basically introduced that into the black metal scene with the corpse paint and stuff like that.
Yeah, the corpse paint, absolutely.
Other than that, it's fairly standard. You know, a look with the studded bracers. Yeah, the bullet belts, all that kind of stuff. Which, unfortunately, you're not even allowed to bring to most black metal shows anymore, or metal shows in general.
What? Come on.
Like they'll just fucking stop you and make you take it off at the checkpoint. It's like, what?
It's a bullet belt. How the fuck am I going to kill somebody with a bullet belt?
Yeah, not only that, it's just like that's part of the look of metal. Not Absolutely. Even just black metal. It's just like that especially Motorhead started that look. When they had the jeans, the fucking bullet belt, and the leather jacket. Which is a look I rock to this day. When appropriate, because, in the middle of the summer, a leather jacket's not going to go over well. Just not good. Because it's hot as hell, and we don't want to deal with it.
Oh my God, yeah. I can only imagine.
But no, this is. You can kind of see the look of black metal developing out of these guys.
Absolutely.
And the sound, too. Going into the second wave. Like, these guys, I think, had a lot of influence on hardcore punk, too. But going into their second record, this is kind of more of the same of really hardcore raw metal coming out of, in this case, 1985. Like, they were kind of exploring this darker side of metal that would later become black metal. Because this is the thing with the first wave of black metal, nobody really was like, oh yeah, we're creating black metal out of this. It came out of this amalgamation of all of these bands, whether it be Venom, Bathory, Sodom, Celtic Frost, or Merciful Fate. They are literally just. This was a kind of rebellion against what was going on in the 80s in terms of like the really overproduced kind of rock or metal music. The hair metal stuff. This was kind of a rebellion against it. Which I think is pretty cool.
Great album cover, for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, the album covers are. I mean, they're also pretty indicative of what you're going to hear when you start spinning this thing.
There's an element of camp to it, almost. You got Jesus being used as a slingshot.
I mean, there's a lot of irreverence.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Irreverence.
For Christianity and stuff like that coming into black metal.
Mm-hmm.
Because, especially in the Scandinavian countries, there was an actual official state religion at this point. I don't know if there still is or not. I'm not growing up there. I don't know. And Fizz just hit this around the head. Like, there's a ton of different types of metal. Like, it all depends on what lyrical content there are, how it sounds. All that kind of stuff. It's a very, the different genres of metal are very, and they can be hard to differentiate at times because you have bands that kind of ride the line between two of them, especially early on with like black and thrash metal. And I can say that black metal and early thrash are intrinsically linked. If you listen to like early Venom and then listen to Kill 'Em All by Metallica, there's a lot of similarity there. And what that means is that black metal actually influenced thrash metal because Venom is 100% black metal. I don't care who says what or what black metal purist likes to say that, oh, well, they didn't really have the sound. Like, they created the sound.
They were also the first to coin the term.
Yeah, they were with the album Black Metal and the song Black Metal in 1982. So, I mean, that's really one of those. It's like, if they're not the start of it, who is? I mean, I've heard people say Bathory. They perfected the sound. They're the way I like to describe this to people who aren't black metal fans is for black metal, Venom is Black Sabbath, and then Bathory is Judas Priest.
Okay.
Where one of them created the sound and the other one perfected it.
Okay. I could definitely see that. Absolutely. I need to listen to it more Bathory to really appreciate the analogy, but I completely hear what you're saying.
Early Bathory is fucking phenomenal. They were one of the bands I got into, and because of Razor Fist, actually. And I went back and listened to their first few records, and holy shit, are they good! It is not everyone's metal. I'll put it that way. The vocal style is very harsh.
Do you get more of like the kind of atmospheric?
Yes, that's where the atmospheric side came into black metal, is with Bathory.
I figured, yeah.
But the first wave bands, I think, are all of them are kind of experimental in a way. Like they all add things into black metal as the sound would be known later. And they were kind of the first ones to do that specific thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they kind of all added to it. Just like the creation of heavy metal in the 70s. Where you had Black Sabbath and then you had Judas Priest. And then towards the NWO BHM era, you had bands like Iron Maiden and Saxon and Motorhead all add their own sound into it.
Mm-hmm.
Although you'll never hear Lemmy say that they were actually a heavy metal band. He maintained to his dying day that they're actually rock and roll. And he's not wrong.
Mm-hmm. No, he's not.
Because when we look at it, heavy metal is just extremely down-tuned and heavy rock and roll.
Yeah. Everything, all heavy metal is rock and roll.
Yeah,
it all emanates from the same thing. We just get specific about it to, because some people don't like loud, fast, and heavy music. And some people do like loud, fast, and heavy music, but it's all rock and roll, clearly.
Well, all heavy metal is rock and roll, and yet hard rock is its own thing.
Yes. Soft rock.
And the definition of hard rock has kind of wandered as the years have gone by. Including a band that we're going to cover on this channel at some point.
Alice in Chains?
In the not too distant future, Van Halen.
Oh, sweet. Yes. I would call for me, Van Halen is the heavy metal band.
I would say they're hard rock. Because a lot of, especially their early stuff, I mean, don't get me wrong, Eddie absolutely fucking slays that guitar. But they don't consistently have that tuning and that attitude that makes them heavy metal.
I gotta disagree. When I listen to that first record and I hear Atomic Funk, I'm thinking full on heavy metal.
You're not wrong. That is a heavy metal song, straight up. But I don't think they are a heavy metal band.
Okay.
I would put them.
I would agree with that. They're not a heavy metal band, but
they do metal songs.
They do metal songs.
I would say the same thing about early bands like Deep Purple.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Where I would say they have metal songs, but they are themselves not intrinsically a heavy metal band. Whereas Black Sabbath, they kind of invented the heavy metal genre.
From the perspective of, they were just trying to make blues rock.
Yeah. And they just went really heavy with it.
almost like they stumbled into it.
Yeah, and you know what? Some of the greatest things that have ever been developed have happened by accident.
True. That's a fact.
And part of the reason for their sound was the fact that Tony Iommi lost two of his fingers in a stamping press.
Which is itself metal.
Yeah. And he actually basically fashioned for himself prosthetics so he can actually still play. Because for those of you who don't play guitar, you can't play guitar with three fingers. You just can't. And he needed to detune his guitar by half a step in order to be able to bend correctly with those prosthetics glued to his fingers.
Yes.
So, and that also created that drop D tuning that we now know and love. And it created this dark, oppressive fucking kind of sound out of the guitar. And Black Sabbath kind of ran with it.
Also, that first song has those notes. I think it's called the tritone, something like that. The devil's notes that people said.
Yeah, well, it was a deeper tuning too.
That too.
It was detuned by half a step.
So you got something slow, detuned, and you're playing minor chords. Yeah, that's going to sound evil, no matter what happens.
It's just, and what you got out of the result was Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of the early black metal bands like Venom did was they combined that tone and that lyrical content with the speed of Motorhead. And what you get is black metal. Whether it be Venom, Bathory, or these guys, Celtic Frost.
Black metal is basically all Motorhead songs in minor chord, just using minor chord. Would you say that? Or is that a gross oversimplification?
I mean, it is simplifying it a little bit, but you're also not wrong.
So I'm in the right area code, just in the wrong zip code.
Well, I mean, it's that. I mean, I don't even think they thought that far into it, because these guys were not trained musicians. These guys are just dudes who had a bunch of had a guitar and a bass and a drum set and decided to make music with it. I'm not even sure they knew what they were doing. But it ended up working out. And I think that is a very heavy metal way of looking at the thing, is just with metal and punk especially.
You definitely don't have to be a trained musician and know every single note in order to be a great, successful musician, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, especially with punk.
Punk. Well,
I mean, most 70s and 80s punk is literally just, here's an A chord, here's a G chord, here's an E chord. No, go start a band. Like, and I don't say that to shit on the musical talent of these people, because there's a lot of it to be had. It's just they didn't know what they were doing early on. I think they learned a lot more later, which is why you see these bands become more polished over time. Especially with Hellhammer, where these guys were basically just almost a garage band. And then, I mean, especially with Apocalyptic Rays, like that's basically a demo.
Mm-hmm.
Mila, how's it going? Hey, get in here.
What up?
I sent you the link if you want to come in and talk about this. And Fizz actually has a great question. What is the difference between punk and metal? A lot of it has to do with the lyrical content, I would say.
I would say, go ahead.
I would say that a lot of it has to do with the lyrical content. Punk at the very beginning was more anarchist. And basically, we just don't give a shit. And we're just here to have a good time. Than metal was.
For me, I would say one of the biggest difference is punk is more unfocused in their message and in their overall presentation and the music they create, whereas metal is super focused, super on the nose as far as what they're trying to say, and it's more making a statement in as hard, fast, and as specific as a way as possible, whereas punk is
very, very poorly defined as a musical genre. Is just kind of like this rebellion against all convention.
it was definitely it was certainly a rebellion against the bands of the late 70s that were, I don't know if this is true or not, but all the history of music, or the people who talk about music, have said that punk was a rebellion against the dinosaur rock bands like Zeppelin and
Well, yeah, they were kind of a rebellion against
10-minute drum solos and 30-minute guitar solos.
against what was rock and roll in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas heavy metal is kind of an evolution of it. In that, yeah, they use a lot of dark imagery and a lot of in a lot of cases, fast-paced music and very harsh lyrics. I would say that the difference between punk and metal is it's a very interesting time because they do cross over at points.
I would agree. I agree
Especially
with that.
later on, once you get into the 80s and you get into the influences of thrash and black metal, punk is a huge influence.
That's true. Like Black Flag, for example, is very specific in their messaging. I don't see much of a difference in terms of the focus of what they're saying between Rise Above and No Remorse, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
they're a
both. I mean, the way I see it is both the guys in Metallica and the guys in Black Flag, at least at the time, lived and breathed what they said in their music.
No, you're 100% right with that. And for the difference between, especially the Bay Area punk and metal scenes of that era, you'd have to ask someone who was there, I think. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing just that on 70s Channel. Can't say too much about it right now, but we're going to have somebody who was part of that California metal scene in the 80s talking to us about, even from a fan perspective, of what was going on there. But I would say that punk and metal are two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. I'd say that the heavy metal side are the more musically talented side of it, because this is a good thing.
It is a good question. I was reading
as well.
I was reading that. Yeah.
Punk is a rebellion against the system in general. Punk has always been, or up until the modern era anyway, punk had been a very anarchist mindset of fucking burn it all down. This isn't working for us. And until the 90s, I would say that kind of stayed true for like the actual punk scene. Whereas metal has been more of a libertarian, I would say, bent to it of these things are fucked up, but we need to fix it. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean. For me, punk has, if you were to look at just punk at the time, late 70s, early 80s, when it was at its height, creatively and musically, I would say punk is an attitude made
Yeah, I would say
of
that.
similar-minded individuals, an attitude that is shared by similar individuals who may or may not know how to play instruments, but get together and write songs regardless. And I hate to put it that way because I feel like the Ramones are really talented musicians in some ways, as far as how good they are at playing their instruments.
But in a lot of ways, they're not. Like they're very basic.
Oh, absolutely.
But they do innovative things with that, and
that's what exactly, and that's what I was saying. It's like if you hear certain songs on certain albums, it's like there's a lot of instrumentation in some manners, and they add some stuff to it, like in post production.
Yeah, and this is why he's asking those questions, and I love that there's a villain. I mean, especially rock music is not rock music in general, but especially punk and metal are very suited to like a hardcore leather wearing villain.
Yeah.
Because that is a very interesting. I think a lot of it, at the end of the day, has to do with the ethos of the band.
Mm-hmm.
In what they stand for, where Black Flag is basically anarchism at its core. Even though none of the members of the band that I'm familiar with are actual anarchists, that's kind of the message they were putting across: is our society is fucked up.
Let's burn it down.
Yeah, and let's burn it down. Whereas a lot of the metal side of it was our society is fucked up.
Let's go fix what's fucked up, or point out what's fucked up.
Let's go fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind
metal
of
is also more self-empowering. Punk isn't. I never listened to a punk band and thought of it as, okay, the musicians are trying to put across a self-empowerment kind of message or ethos in their song. And I know Metallica and bands like that don't do that necessarily.
Well, I mean, they do in a lot of ways in some of their lyrics.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. This could be an entire live stream just dedicated to
just talking about like the
just talking about
metal.
Okay, what? How do we define punk? How do we define metal?
And
where on the chessboard do they all kind of fit?
And or the ethos of heavy metal.
Exactly.
I mean, we probably will do an entire live stream just on that. And I think we'd have a great conversation. I would want Herbs and Imperatus and a couple other people here for that. But oh man, that would be a great conversation. But I would say, just off the cuff, that punk is more anarchist, of just burn it all down, and metal is more pointing out the flaws in society and then trying to fix it
Mhm.
in a way. Whether it's successful or not is up to interpretation. But, punk has always, or at least until the modern era, has much more been just raging at what the establishment is, and then trying to burn it down. And metal is basically trying to reform it through criticism in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
From the earliest, I mean, look at War Pigs by Black Sabbath.
I was gonna say Disposable Heroes by Metallica.
Disposable Heroes is another great one. That has an extremely political message. But
Peace Sells by Megadeth.
Peace Sells by Megadeth as well. I mean, like, it has a political message, but here's what I love about it, like the old school metal stuff, is they have a political bent to them, but they don't tell you how to solve it.
They're not preachy. They have no specific.
They just, I mean, especially like Hand of Doom by Black Sabbath or Peace Sells by Megadeth, is they just present this problem to you. And it's kind of one of those, how do we fix this? And they don't offer solutions. They're just like, hey, this shit is going on and it's horrible. So how do we fix it? And like that's kind of the unspoken question.
Yeah, I never.
And it's up to the listener to kind of think about what they're saying and what they're singing about, and
it makes you think.
Exactly, like it kind of tries to make you think about the things they're singing about and how you would approach that solution. And I think that is one of the ways that music, especially rock, can be a positive influence on society, is criticizing it in a way that gets people to start, using their gray matter.
It's healthy. It's a healthy criticism. It
creates.
See, that's the thing. When
in a lot of ways, it gets people to start using their fucking gray matter and start thinking about, well, yeah, they're right. This is a problem. How do we fix it?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
and it's not telling you a specific thing.
Exactly.
There's the biggest difference between almost everything made today and everything made when this album came out was today everything is telling you what the solution is. It's telling you
what they think the solution is.
What they think the solution is. Yeah, thank you. Whereas in yesteryear, they were like, as you pointed out, they were leaving it up to the listener.
And honestly, I especially as the guy who just went to Fan Expo in Boston, and I love meeting all you guys that showed up to that. Anyone who's here who's listening, I absolutely love meeting all of you, and it was a great weekend. And I actually got Jonathan Frakes to sign an autograph for my dad.
Oh, cool.
Because that was how I spent a large part of my childhood. Was like, it was me and my dad in the recliner watching Star Trek: The Next Generation every Sunday night or every Saturday night. And he absolutely loved that story. I told him that. And also, he was actually at the first convention my dad took me to. It was actually a Star Trek convention. Back before these things got more generalized.
That was so much better.
It kind of was in a lot of ways, yeah.
I miss the days of bullying and being mocked for liking nerdy shit. I'd much rather have those days back than everybody being a nerd.
Well,
Because
I kind of got the best of both worlds in a lot of ways, in that I was a nerd in that I loved this shit. Like, this is what speaks to me on an intellectual and creative level.
I'm the same.
But I was also an athlete. So I was also on the hockey and baseball teams.
That was similar to my story in many ways. I love, to this day, I love football. And I would play football with, the quote unquote, with the jocks from like kindergarten to just before high school when I messed up my ankle and could no longer play. But I was always into, like, I played soccer, I played baseball. I mean, if you're born in the United States and you don't have an aptitude for baseball by the time you're 5, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Everybody
I would
born in this
say
country can play
baseball is the ultimate American sport.
It is. It really is. And so I share a lot of that same kind of, that's essentially, that's why I'm saying, that's why I miss those days, because the bullies were like the apex predators. They were like the sharks, right? And they kept all the nerds in line, so to speak.
And yet they taught you how to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you punch the bully in the fucking nose, he goes away.
That's true.
Because mostly they're very weak people.
I love,
especially me being a hockey player. It was just natural for me.
You hockey guys, you're built different. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we're not. It's just that's how we grew up in New England. It's like hockey is just a sport that we all play.
If I had grown up in New England, that would be pretty interesting to see, because I happen to grow up in California, and there was never any opportunity to play hockey, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and I more than the pity for you guys, because I mean, I grew up learning how to skate. I mean, I think I started skating when I was like 4 years old.
Wow.
So I was barely able to walk. And I was already learning how to skate. And also, where I grew up was the town next door to the Bruins practice rink. So our skating lessons got over at the same time, our skating lessons were about to start when the Bruins morning skate got over. So a lot of the guys would hang out and talk to us about playing hockey. So we grew up taking pointers from the Boston Bruins of the day, which was guys like Cam Neely, Ray Bork, like, some of the legends of the Boston Bruins. So that was always a cool thing for us. And we all know guys who played. The only reason I ended up playing is because most of my friends ended up strapping on skates and were like, "Hey, you should play with us." I was like, "Okay." I mean, I was much better at baseball in terms of actual skill, but I love playing hockey because it's just a lot of fun.
I didn't learn how to skate pretty much ever until I was like 10 or 11. And I didn't even learn how to skate first. I learned how to rollerblade when I was like 9. We played street hockey back then.
We used to play street hockey too, but we weren't doing it on rollerblades. We were just doing it barefoot. Well, like, you just kind of run around and put a couple of nets in the street, and then I'll just run around on barefoot on your sneakers, and we'd use one of those plastic balls rather than a puck.
Right, and they had pucks back then that had ball bearings in them.
Yeah, the little bearings in them. Those Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, New England's kind of the same way, where we learn to play hockey almost before we can walk. And it just becomes a thing throughout your entire life. And even the kids who don't end up playing hockey, like, know people who do. But that's because, hell, we can play hockey outside, like actual ice hockey outside for like almost half the year. Because some of our ponds and stuff like that start icing over in October,
Jesus.
and they don't really thaw out until April or May. Now, they're not, the ice isn't thick enough that you can really skate on it and play hockey that entire time, but I'd say from like December to March, you can usually skate on some of the ponds around here. And if you can skate on it, you can play hockey on it. So, I mean, even outside of, any kind of official league or whatever, me and my friends would just go down to Log Pond and play hockey. Thoth brings this up. Yeah, you're not wrong. Or like after a storm, you'd like really love to play hockey because it packed it down almost like it was ice. Yeah. Oh man, those were the days. But getting back to Celtic Frost, these guys, especially were on the European side of the house, where punk did originally originate in the U.S. and then very quick. This is an argument that goes on to this day between the punks of who came first, the Ramones or the Sex Pistols.
Was the Ramones.
It was the Ramones.
Yeah, I hear this occasionally with my brother's friends because they're into punk, and my brother is into punk too, but he's not into it like some of his friends are, and they all have, to them it's the Clash and the Sex Pistols,
and don't get me wrong, all of that stuff's great. That's what we would consider like first wave punk.
Yes.
But the Ramones were first.
Yes.
And goddamn, if the first time, like, if I'm in like a mood like where I just want to listen to some punk, I'll be goddamn if the first thing I don't reach for is the Ramones self-titled album. With songs like fucking Blitzkrieg Bop, fucking all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Man, like, that's just great shit. And it's so simple to play, too.
All down chords.
Yep, all down chords, and it's only, I think, 2 or 3 chords that you need to know.
Down picking 2 or 3 chords, yeah.
Yeah, it's down picking like 2 or...
Mishes stuff together like that sometimes.
Yeah, and it's simple. And let's face it, Blitzkrieg Bop is a fucking fun song.
Yes, it is. It's borderline a pop song almost. It's got this pop kind of feel to it. Yeah. Kind of thing. And,
oh man, Fizzy, if you've never heard of the Ramones, like, they are the origin of punk rock.
Physio has heard of the Ramones. He's heard the Ramones. He's probably heard of the Ramones. He's probably heard their music.
You've probably heard their music. You just didn't.
To the band.
You've just never known they were that was the Ramones.
Dude, Physio, don't worry about it. I just realized that about God damn, what was the band? Shit. Greetings Clearwater Revival.
Oh, CCR. I mean, hell. I mean, I've done 2 streams on them now. One on my channel, and the other one on 70's channel. Where we did their whole discography, and holy shit, what a great band!
I know. I brought this up on a phone call to my mom a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "Yeah, I had no idea because all this music was played during my childhood, and it just wasn't until fucking like 2 weeks ago that I put all of it together for whatever reason." And now I just feel like an idiot.
I was one of those kids too that like I paid attention to all the shit my parents were playing. Like I grew up with the Beatles, Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin to this day, by the way. The Who, all that kind of stuff.
Cream.
CCR,
Yeah.
Cream. Like those guys were like in the '60s. Those guys were the biggest bands in the world. And they deserve to be. Unfortunately, none of them had the staying power that a lot of the metal bands do. Because most of them were around for like what, 10 years?
Even less than that. Cream was around for
and then most of the just disbanded.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the case of Jimi Hendrix, he died.
But even those Hendrix records have much longer.
Those Hendrix records just changed rock and roll forever.
And they have the staying power.
Like and I would say that he would have been a hell of a metal artist. Because if you notice, like, as the further along he got in his career, he started playing a lot bluesier and a lot heavier. The further he got along. Songs like Voodoo Child and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You could imagine that being like 1972 and being a full-on heavy metal record. Like Jimi Hendrix is one of those just master musicians.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
Regardless of genre, everybody fucking loves. And if you don't like Jimi Hendrix, I question your taste in music. It's just like, this is possibly the best that the 60s had to offer in terms of guitar playing, especially.
With Hendrix, you get blues, psychedelia, rock, hard rock.
And the beginnings of heavy metal towards the end.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's what we would classify as proto-metal. Almost like Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin, where they had some songs that were metal, but the entire sound hadn't coalesced into a unit yet. The one I always bring up is The Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a metal as fuck song.
Yes, absolutely.
But they are not a metal band per se.
No, and they probably feel insulted if you call them that.
These days, I don't know if they would, but at the time, certainly.
Yeah.
At the time, certainly. The term heavy metal didn't exist until Judas Priest claimed the title in '74. Like, they were the first band to ever really claim the title of heavy metal.
That's right.
And that's why they're my gods until this day. Priest is the fucking truth, my friends.
Nice. I want to get that tattooed.
Dude, I'm not only gonna get it tattooed. I mean, I already have a Priest tattoo. You guys can see that.
Gorgeous.
I'm actually gonna get it touched up because some of the colors are starting to fade inconsistently. But the other one I want to get, not only is the priest tattoo, I also want to, like, for like the meetups and stuff like that, I want to get like a Pope hat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the Judas Priest emblem
Oh my God,
in the front of it.
that'd be perfect.
Yeah,
Totally
like
perfect.
my costume for like the conventions and stuff going forward, because I mean, my name Pope Metallicus the
Pope
First. Like
Metallus.
I
You
have
got
to
the beard.
fucking,
You can
I
look
have,
like one of those like 16th century popes. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
I have to have the Pope hat, but I'm gonna do it with like the battle jacket
Cool.
and the bullet belt.
Dude, that sounds so cool.
Dude, I'm gonna try to fucking work with this and see what I can come up with after the move, especially. But we'll see what I come up with. But like that's my thing for like going forward, because like
If you could put together like some concept art for it and like share it before you make a decision, that'd be fucking cool. I would love to see that.
oh no, I mean I would love to share some concept art with it. Like if I could draw that well, which I can't.
Oh,
I may be able to play a guitar pretty decently, but when it comes to drawing, I'm basically a caveman. But oh man, like I think that would be really cool, especially because like the fan expo brought this up where like everyone else is like kind of dressed up and something like that, and I'm just kind of sitting there in my street clothes. I think I actually had my MU shirt on, so I'm just like, yeah, I'm here too. I'm a big dude with a mohawk. But no, I'd love to have like that kind of outfit, like the Pope hat with the fucking battle jacket and the bullet belt. I think that would be fucking awesome. Because I don't want to get too close to Ghost. You know what I mean?
right. But
Like
yeah,
that.
maybe the Pope hat.
That's
Pope
the
hat is
biases
enough.
thing. Yeah.
Pope hat probably is enough of the. If you're going for the Pope motif, that's probably perfect. Without quote unquote, oh, you're ripping off Ghost kind of criticism.
Well, yeah, but I also want to go like the old school metal aesthetic of denim and leather.
I can't wait to see it.
I mean, I'll have to play around with it, but it's going to be great. It's going to be
Go
really
big or
great.
go home is
Exactly.
the only suggestion I can give you. But hopefully it'll look.
Well, I mean that's the thing that a lot of rock bands have digged on heavy metal for, in a lot of ways, is where's the humility? And it's just like there is none. It's kind of like what Queen did, where it's like there is none.
Everybody loves Queen now, but they were one of the dinosaur bands that people were talking crap about.
Yeah, and yet they were one of the most metal bands in the early 70s.
Exactly. So
I would say they are a proto power metal on their first two records. And I would say Priest picked up on a lot of what they were doing, and I would say that Rainbow picked up on a lot of what they were doing and ran with it.
Good point. I didn't think of that.
And even just in their live performances, like Queen is just one of the quintessential rock bands live. Because in like 5 seconds, Freddie will have you eating out of the palm of his hand. Like he's just that good as a frontman, not even just as a singer. Oh, the Highlander soundtrack is speaking to my fucking soul.
It's a Kind of Magic is my favorite Queen album.
It's one of my favorites too. I like a lot of their earlier stuff, but damn, that is just such a great record.
Yeah, I hate to put it this way, but I am in the camp of 80s Queen is better than 70s Queen. Just like I feel like 80s Kiss is better than 70s Kiss.
I would argue with both of those.
Okay.
but that's just because they were more experimental back then.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in Queen's case, they were doing straight up power metal in 1972, before Rainbow even formed. And if you haven't listened to the earlier Queen albums, and this goes for everybody, listen to that shit. It is some of the best music you will ever hear in your life. Some of it's prog, yeah, and some of it's kind of pretentious, but a lot of it's heavy as fuck, like March of the Black Queen or Ogre Battle or the Seven Seas of Rye. Like, it's just great shit from toast to titties. And Fizz, I have played Brutal Legend. I absolutely love that game. Sentinel, have you ever played it?
Which game?
Brutal Legend.
No, I haven't played it.
Oh, you need to.
Brutal Legend. Let me look that up.
A lot of the old heads of heavy metal were all involved with it. Lemmy was involved, was a voice actor. Most of them are voice actors in the game. Like Lemmy's in there, Rob Halford's in there. I know Ozzy Osbourne is. I think Ronnie James Dio is too at one point.
Is that like a rock kind of guitar?
Yeah.
Game? So you have to play you have to get like a sort of like Guitar Hero kind of thing?
I don't think so. I think you can play it using an actual controller.
All right. I'm going to check it out.
It's actually
PlayStation 3. It was released in 2009. Let's see if it's on PS4 or something.
Well, I mean, Fizz, Jack Black is a rock star in his own right. I mean, especially with the Pick of Destiny, he played with guys like Meatloaf and Ronnie James Dio. Like, he is a rock star in his own right. He just didn't amplify a lot of his shit because it sounded better as a more acoustic. He is actually a fairly decent guitarist, though. A lot of the stuff that is on Tenacious D's albums is Jack Black just playing guitar.
Oh, it is? It does go for PS4. I'm going to have to check this out. Because if you're giving me recommendations, I got to follow up on them because I know I'll probably like them.
Oh, I mean, I played Brutal Legend back in the day on 360. And man, it was a great fucking game. Actually, let me. I'll have to check after the stream and see if I can get it for Xbox Series X or PC. Because I need to play that game again. It's been too long. And thank you, Fizz, for fucking reminding me of that game. I had forgotten about it years ago. And it is kind of a real-time strategy game. And yeah, it did. Because it catered to a niche audience. Guys like me. Guys like Sentinel. So, it was kind of one of those. It was a great idea. And a lot of some of the best video games ever made have been commercial flops. Because I still play some of those games to this day, if I can still get them to work on my current PC. My best example of that would be the Journeyman Project. All 3 games.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get an Xbox in order to play it. It's not available.
And Sentinel, I think you're roughly my age. You remember the Journeyman Project games?
No, I don't. I never heard of them.
Oh, okay. It was kind of like Myst, where it was kind of like action adventure game
Okay.
in the '90s. I'll probably put him up on Twitch at some point if Twitch behaves and I can actually get them to work with modern software. Because I have the GOG versions of all three games, and I loved those games as a kid, and I would love to play through them again as an adult and share that with you guys. Because the first time I played, I think I came in on Buried in Time, which was Journeyman Project 2. And I absolutely loved that game. And so I think I would love to have a playthrough of them. Maybe once I finish Chaos Gate on Twitch, I'll play through some of the older games. And because keep in mind, guys, these games are from the 1990s. Oh, okay. So apparently the same developer also made Psychonauts.
I've never heard of Psychonauts either.
I've heard of it. I've seen gameplay of it. I've never played it myself. It seems kind of fun, though. But I would love to have play some old school games for you guys on Twitch, probably, if I can get it to work. Because these are the games we grew up playing. Games like the Buried in Time trilogy, Wing Commander, Sentinel. I'm sure you're old enough to remember Wing Commander.
I've heard the name, but I never played it, unfortunately.
Or Star Wars X-Wing.
Yes. Well, here was my thing was Ace Combat. That was the one that hooked me into.
I was a PC gamer from pretty much a young age, but I did play some of the early Ace Combats. My favorite still is Ace Combat 6.
Fires of Liberation?
Yeah.
I never played that one.
Really?
I didn't play it because
that was actually the first time it was multi-platform.
No, it wasn't. It was Xbox 360 alone. That
was it?
Yes, that was the thing. I was pissed at PlayStation 3 for not backwards making the PS3 backwards compatible completely throughout its running life, and I found this out later, so I was stuck, and I didn't want to get an Xbox 360.
Actually, the early PS3s are
100%
back compatible.
I didn't hear about that until much later, so I'd have to go back now and buy one. But at the time, I just pretty much skipped over that generation of console to my detriment.
The 60 gig PS3s are 100% back compatible.
Yeah, I've heard.
I actually, the only reason I know that is I used to work at GameStop when that console was actually available.
I should have gotten that. That's one of my biggest regrets is not getting. But fuck the PlayStation 3. I should have gotten an Xbox 360.
Dude, I have a bias against Sony at this point because I've had so many bad experiences with their customer service department that I'm just like, I'm done. And also, the PlayStation controllers are not built for people with fucking sausage fingers like I have. Like I'm a big dude and I have big hands. So like the PlayStation controller feels really awkward for me. For people in Japan, I'm sure it's fine.
It's like scrunching your hands.
Yeah, I'm trying to really like compress my thumbs together to use the two sticks.
Yeah.
And the Xbox controller just makes a lot more sense to me. And I gotta say, Microsoft has been much more consumer friendly than Sony has in the last decade.
Absolutely, that's one of the reasons why
I come from the old school PC gaming where Microsoft was the fucking evil empire.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys were the big bad. And now they're starting to be like nice to their consumers.
I don't know if they're nice, but they're
Well,
compared
they're
to
much
Sony,
better than anyone else is.
much better than Sony for sure.
Well, I mean, they announced when Xbox Series X came out that if you already owned any game on Xbox One that had a
Free upgrade?
remaster, that you would automatically get a free upgrade.
See, that's so fucking cool.
That you wouldn't have to pay for it. Like every other company would make you pay for that. Full price.
I
And
can't wait to get an Xbox.
Xbox is just like, yeah, don't worry about it. We got it.
Like I didn't have a PS4 until 2019. So,
I had the original Xbox One in 2013 when they first came out. I loved it, and honestly, I've had one ever since. I had the Xbox One, and then, well, that's also true, Fez.
That's sad.
It makes me very sad because boobs make us all happy.
Yeah.
And you know what? At this point, fuck Sony. Like I've been there since the PS2 days. I had a PS2.
PS2 is still my favorite. I still have mine hooked up right now.
I had, as a kid, my first system was a Sega Genesis.
Same. Holy shit. Same.
And holy shit, what an intro to gaming.
I know.
Like, Sonic the Hedgehog, Mortal Kombat,
Ultra Beast.
Jurassic Park.
Did you ever play that fucking X-Men game? That first
Yes,
X-Men?
I did.
Dude, did you break a controller over it too?
Yes, I did.
The game, famously, you had to hit the reset button in order to get to the last level. I spent hours just swearing as like a kid.
Yeah. And then in 1 year, my granddad on my dad's side and then my grandmother on my mother's side both bought me a console for Christmas. So I had an N64 and a PS1.
Sweet.
In 1998. Which
Sweet. All I gotta say.
The first two games I ever got for my N64 were GoldenEye,
Of course.
and Ocarina of Time. So like the two best N64 games of all time. I got them right off the bat.
My brother is obsessed with the Legend of Zelda games to this day. Obsessed. It's like one of the only consistent nerdy things I know about him because he's just not consistent. He likes he's one of those people who likes a little bit of everything kind of deal. Is kind of casual. But as far as like Zelda is concerned, he's a hardcore fan.
Everybody has that thing that they nerd out over. Like in his case, it's Legend of Zelda. And there are worse things to nerd out over. That game series is fucking fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
In fact,
Metal Gear Solid is another
now,
he was into.
He might over my favorite Zelda game because I think it's just so creative and so different. Is the Wind Waker on GameCube?
See, I don't think he ever had GameCube. He played the N64 and then PlayStation. And of course, I don't think Zelda was ever out on Sony.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
This is the thing that Nintendo was really, really smart about is that they own all of their IPs. So if like Zelda, Mario, all of that shit is owned by Nintendo. So they don't ever have to worry about paying any rights to anyone. Like those game developers all developed it for Nintendo. Same thing with Pokemon, which uh, I'm sure you're probably about my age. Remember the Pokemon card craze in the 90s?
I still have them.
I actually got rid of mine. I'm
Oh
so
no!
fucking mad that I did. Because I had some really, really rare shit early on. Like I had a holographic Raichu.
Oh my god! Don't ever look up when any. Don't ever go to eBay and look up how much those things are bid for, because it'll probably make you
And
cry.
I also had a first edition holographic Gyarados.
Damn, that's nuts,
Although,
man.
you know what one of my all-time favorite Pokemon is to this day, just because he looks so cool, is Arcanine.
I forgot who's Arcanine.
Growlithe evolution.
I I can't remember that one either.
It's basically a big tiger striped wolf,
Okay,
and it looks glorious as fuck.
cool. All right.
And also Charizard was pretty fucking baller.
Yes, I would say Charizard. Mewtwo always had this kind of cool look. It was almost like a Dragon Ball Z character as a Pokemon. Almost.
I always liked Mew better, in
Mhm.
that was the original that everyone was trying to copy, and did a bad job of it. Like, I was a first 2 gen um, Pokemon fan. Like I had Yellow for my Game Boy Advance. Sorry, my Game Boy Color. And then I had Gold and Silver when they both came out, and then I kind of got out of Pokemon.
Same. Pokemon. I have all the cards that I collected, and I got the Game Boy games.
I still love the universe, and I still play the older games. I just don't fuck with the newer generations.
Yeah, for me it was like for me it's similar to the Power Ranger craze, where
Yeah,
it
where
was
like
something that was
like
big when I was a kid, and I
the
haven't really connected with it as an adult.
the first Power Ranger series is fucking amazing.
Yes, talk about a power metal
Oh
kids
god,
show.
yeah. Especially the theme. It's straight up power metal.
Yes.
And Fizz is right where he says Smash Bros was fucking
Oh my
insane when it
god.
came out
Oh my
on
god.
N64. Holy
What
shit.
for GameCube? I remember it.
That
People.
was actually the second one. The
That
original
was the
came out.
second one.
Yeah,
Okay.
the original came out for N64.
Shit.
And Super Smash Brothers was my shit, dude. Like
Oh, that's what the one that was called. That's the sequel, Super Smash Brothers.
me and my
Right?
friends used to fucking throw down on Super Smash Bros. Like, one of my favorites to play was Donkey Kong because you could basically beat the shit out of somebody, like to the point where they had one less life than you, and then just run off, grab them, and run off the ledge with them, so that you would both die. So it's just like, oh no, you're coming with me. It's like, oh no. Oh man, I miss original Super Smash Bros. Also, one of the best games for N64 and GameCube, and I'm trying to kind of emulate them on PC if I can find one that's actually useful, is Rogue Squadron.
That was cool. That was a great.
All 3 Rogue Squadron games were fucking fantastic.
Yeah. I think I like them almost as much as the Star Wars Starfighter games that they released a little later.
Well, that actually was based on that game.
Yeah.
It was based on the prequel trilogy. And actually, the funny thing is, on Xbox, that game, Star Wars Starfighter and Star Wars Jedi Starfighter, are actually available for purchase right now for like $2.
I've got Jedi Starfighter. I don't know if I.
And guess what?
Just checking.
Guess what other games will work on the Xbox Series X?
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry, dude.
KOTOR.
Yes.
Both of them.
KOTOR 2.
Both of them work.
Battlefront 2.
I
Star
have
Wars
the original.
Revenge of the
Actually, the funny thing is, Battlefront 2 and Revenge of the Sith, I've had all along.
Yes, I got both of those.
They worked on 360. They work on Xbox One, and they work on Series X.
Well, that's definitely good to know because I am definitely getting the Series X. I want to have that physical disc player in it so that I can buy obscure Xbox games.
Well, it's not even just buy obscure Xbox games. They just work. You can buy them from the Microsoft Store.
That's fucking awesome.
And in fact, you know what game I have on here that was actually an N64 exclusive, I think. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer.
Cool.
Oh man,
that was better than Racer's Revenge, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely was, because you're fucking pod racing.
And you could build the engine. They let you customize. Yeah,
they literally let you customize the fucking pod racing.
That was the fun part, to be honest.
Yeah, it was just mixing, mashing shit together to make a better pod racer.
Yeah.
And some of them were better than others. It was the same thing as Twisted Metal on PlayStation.
I wonder how that died out. Like, that was one of the big names that PlayStation had back in the day.
Twisted Metal was fucking great. Especially, how much fun did you have with Sweet Tooth? The ice cream
clown guy. Who's the clown guy?
The ice cream truck.
The ice cream truck, yeah. I played him the most.
That was Sweet Tooth.
That was Sweet Tooth? Okay. Shit. Some of these things I can remember, and some of them they're fuzzy as fuck, you know?
And you bet your ass, Fizz, like, everyone I knew owned Super Smash Brothers when it came out. And that was probably 99, 2000. Somewhere around there. But holy shit, like, everybody played Super Smash Brothers. And this was the era before online multiplayer. So when you were sitting there beating the shit out of your friends, they were sitting right there. Ooh, Messiah or Revelation of Doom? That's a good question, Grant. I would say Messiah. Because I really wish I could play you guys clips on this show, but unfortunately it's YouTube and I can't. Or I'll get the fucking stream taken down again. But I would say Messiah. And we haven't even gotten to the latest album yet. Or the last album. And I love the artwork for this one, especially. I mean, just take a look at that one, Sentinel.
Whoa.
That's fucking great artwork.
Yeah.
Because, especially as, like, a black metal album, it's apocalyptic.
Yeah, that's some straight up what's the mountain in Lord of the Rings?
Mount Doom.
Yes. I mean, you might as well, these little people could be orcs. right here. This looks like they're building shit or destroying shit or something. It looks like more. Is it Mordor? Forget.
Yep.
Okay.
And
looks,
well, I mean, Grant, that's just like your opinion, man. And you can come on the show and argue with me to we're both blue in the face. I still like Messiah better. I do want to have you on the show at some point, dude. I think that'd be fucking awesome. But this album is, I think, the last good album that Celtic Frost ever did. Unfortunately. Oh man, I wish Imperatus was here for this because he would have an opinion on all of this. Because like, I dabble in black metal. I'm not like a black metal fanatic. Like this is one of like it's something I listen to, but it's not my favorite. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Imperatus, this is where he shines. This is his music. Whereas I'm more of just a generic metalhead. Like this is what he does. But this album I liked a lot. I think you guys will too. If you're into early black metal or punk, I think you guys will like Celtic Frost quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm saving all these albums to my library playlist. So when I'm in my car, I can listen to them right through my phone.
But I mean, this is, I think, the last really great album from them. This came out in '87. So about the time I came out. And, you know, the late 80s going into the early 90s was kind of the demarcation line between the generations of black metal. But I have to go for a minute. I will Sentinel vamp for me.
Sure. All right. Well, until he gets back, I'm going to kind of continue the Pandemonium. Let me just look up Into the Pandemonium. Into the Pandemonium was released in 1987 by Horse Sound. No, the label was Noise. Combat Noise was the label in the United States. They had one single, I Won't Dance, that was released in '87, obviously. The cover art is was actually from an actual painting, The Garden of Earthly. Wait a minute. Cover image is a detail from the Hell panel of the Garden of Earthly Delights, a triptych painting in 1504 by Hieronymus Bosch, now part of the permanent collection at Prado in Madrid. So the album cover is actually from a famous painting. I didn't know that. Pretty cool, man. The album was remastered in '99 and released. I think this is the one he has. Oh, this is a 2017 re-release. Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, the album cover for this was actually from a famous painting from 1504.
Yep.
That was awesome. I had no idea it was actually one section of a famous painting from 1504, made by some guy called Hieronymus Bosch.
Yep. Black metal was famous for that, for kind of either corrupting or adopting classical art pieces into their album covers and or lyrics. I mean, one of the best, especially because like the Renaissance, like a lot of the art back then dealt with like satanic bargains and stuff like that, of people being tempted by the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what fucking black metal does. Is go into the heretical side of, the old European traditions and the Christian church in general, and just kind of turn it on its head.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. From a critical standpoint, like, may not agree with the things that come out of it, but it's casting a existing dogma in a very critical lens,
Mm-hmm.
and enabling us to see what's good and bad about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you're saying. They just took it a little too far with the church burning.
Well, yeah, that happened.
I'd say everything that they did, other than the burning, was absolutely necessary to be a counter to any kind of dogmatic old world Christianity that was still being forced.
And I think that's a very interesting thing for us to say as Americans, because we've never had a state enforced religion.
Yeah.
Whereas Europe, up until the 1990s, actually did. In some places, I'm not so sure that's gone away. Scandinavia, up until the 1990s, I think, actually had a enforced state church that you were just enrolled in at birth.
I can't imagine living under that.
No, that's I think what the impetus for a lot of black metal is, something we can't understand, because separation of church and state in the U.S. has always been a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like from our inception, that's always been a thing. And I think that kind of dilutes kind of the meaning of the early black metal stuff, because it was kind of a rebellion against that in a lot of ways. In that, no, I'm not going to belong to your church.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with it. And yet I was born into it. So I think that creates a little bit more animosity in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yep. And when you break with the state enforced religion, when you break one of the church's rules,
Mm-hmm.
there's real world punishment for it.
Yeah, there are actual consequences for it. Which, in a lot of cases, from a moral argument or from a moral standpoint, I can see where the church is coming from on a lot of this shit. But that's not for this channel. But I do see that they have a point where they come to it. Where they don't have a point is when they're like in the 80s, when they started trying to suppress heavy metal bands.
Yes.
Who were basically just doing what we wanted. Nobody was doing anything that outlandish.
It was show business.
Yeah, exactly.
It was
show
Vincent
business.
Price with music.
Yeah, it's basically show business.
Yes. They were freaking
And
out over Ozzy Osbourne, and yet he became, grandpa metal.
yeah, and to the point where, hell, he's a fucking sellout now.
Yeah. But
But
everything they told us was dangerous wasn't. So,
well, everything they told us was dangerous, we got attracted to as kids.
well, that was also true. Yeah,
Especially in my case. Do you have any idea how many times my mom told me not to join the Marine Corps?
I have no idea. How many
Probably
times?
about 5 or 6. And yet I came home contract in hand. Because it's just something I wanted to do. And I don't regret it for a second. Being a United States Marine is one of the most meaningful things I've ever done.
And people don't get that anymore. People don't appreciate that a lot of us want to have some meaning in our lives.
Yeah, and not only that, yes, it was hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's worth it. Because you earned that title at the end of the day, and they don't understand why we're proud of it. Like, there's a reason I have a fucking Marine Corps Eagle of an Anchor tattooed on my fucking arm. Like, it becomes part of who you are at that point. And because you earned it. It wasn't just this thing you went through and then you survived till the end of it. So that's not how it works.
I don't think people really appreciate that, because people are all about immediate gratification and really don't want to work to earn something. Maybe that's a general kind of.
Whereas this emblem, you have to fucking shed blood, sweat, and tears to earn this thing. It's becoming part of something larger than yourself.
And of course, they don't get that either, because they're all just hive-minded.
Well, they already think that, like, oh, well, everything is like me. Like, no, that's not how it fucking works. And I really love when people like to use the, collectivist mindset against vets. Because they're like, oh, well, you guys like to say you're a brotherhood in the community. Like, yeah, because we all earned our place there. Every single fucking one of us. I don't care if you were, Air Wing or, an Air Force, TAC P, or even just a maintenance guy or whatever. We all went through it. And we all have that sense of community now. Because you earned your place there. Now, the Marine Corps, in my estimation, being biased, obviously, we have a different mindset in that you are not a Marine until you graduate boot camp. Until then, you are a less than nothing. But once you graduate boot camp, you're a Marine, and you are a Marine for life. Even once you're out, it's not so much, something you've done in your past. It becomes part of who you are as a person. Same thing with heavy metal. It's not so much just the music you listen to. It becomes part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects you in ways that you didn't even anticipate. Same thing with the Marine community. Even once we're out, we're all over the place. And it's really cool seeing that we're the smallest branch of the U.S. military by far. And yet we are the most coherent when it comes to veterans talking to each other. Like, a lot of guys get out of the Army or the Air Force and they just go their own way. But Marines, when we get out, it's less a job and more of a brotherhood. We keep track of each other. Like, there's guys I went to boot camp with that I still keep in contact with. We haven't seen each other in 10 years. But I still keep tabs on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people fail to realize about the military is that the reason you don't understand us is because we are a different culture. We have our own little subculture going on. The same thing as the metal community or the gamer community. We have our little corner of things, and what really pisses me off is when people start trying to come in and change those things. That's why I got involved in this whole, not to quote the Godfather, but this thing of ours.
Yeah. Same for me. Like, you're coming in to my brotherhood that I took a lot of shit for. And I didn't
even
earn
just
anything.
Being a Star Wars fan, like,
Just
yes, we're open-minded Star Wars fans.
Exactly.
Like, but make it Star Wars, and Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars.
Star Wars. It's not.
With the exception maybe of Rogue One, because I did enjoy that quite a bit.
You can enjoy it, but that's not Star Wars.
Well, and yet I liked a lot of the questions it answered. And I also did love seeing Gold Leader and Red Leader again. I'm not going to lie. I did enjoy seeing those two again. Even though I think they had both died in my childhood. I did enjoy seeing both of them on screen again. But the thing with Rogue One is it fit within the existing canon, and they didn't try to change anything. It was basically a direct prequel to Episode 4. And that's why it worked. And the one thing I will say, and you will agree with this, is we finally got to say Darth Vader being Darth fucking Vader.
I disagree.
Okay.
I've read Darth Vader in multiple books, and I mean, if you were to say Darth Vader,
but on screen, this is the first time we got to see Darth Vader being Darth fucking Vader, rather than the big asthmatic thing in the corner that just looks menacing. I will say that scene was fucking awesome. Where he's just going through rebel troopers like tissue paper. And that's exactly how it should be. No, I mean, Fizz is right. Kenobi was the worst thing that Disney Star Wars ever did.
The worst thing so far.
You're not wrong.
But listen, it has to get worse. It has to get worse and worse and worse.
It's going to.
And the reason it needs to get worse is because the IP needs to become worthless to Disney in order for them to sell it. They have to sell Star Wars in order for Star Wars to even be brought back.
To stand a chance of being better. Now, I will say the counter argument to that is Strange New Worlds. Where it actually, don't get me wrong, I have my issues with the show.
I'm just not familiar with it enough.
But it feels like Star Trek. And I'll give it that. At the very least, it feels like a Star Trek show. Whereas Discovery and Lower Decks and all of that shit have not. For the first time since Enterprise, I can genuinely say I sat down and enjoyed an episode of Star Trek. Of new Star Trek, which is interesting. But that may be my just desire to have actual good Trek back. I will say that it is far better than Discovery ever got.
That's one of the things they're doing to you is they give you, I don't know if it's intentional, but the way it's worked out is they've given you such shit for so long that something that's mediocre is amazing.
Well, but here's
I'm not saying Brave New Worlds or New Worlds is like, I don't know enough about it because I don't watch any of it. But I know The Mandalorian had that effect on people.
But here's where I'm at with Strange New Worlds, is that we need to encourage the good side of it. Like, tell them what we like, tell them what we didn't like. Because it seems like they're finally responding to us for the first time in forever.
Well, if that's... Hey, listen, I hope it stays great for your sake. But I don't trust any of these motherfuckers at all. And I've tried that with Star Wars. We've tried that. That argument just doesn't work. They're going to do what the fuck they want to do regardless.
And yet it seems like they've reacted to the fan reaction to Discovery, which was, oh, everyone hates this. Let's try to go back to the older model. And you and Fizz are both right. I don't trust either of them to do the right thing at all. But I'm willing to give them a shot. And you know what? Strange New Worlds is, for all of its flaws, a pretty decent first season. And let's face it, as Star Trek fans, most Star Trek shows have their worst episodes in the first season. In fact, even TNG, as much as I love it, it's the show I grew up with. But the first season is pretty inconsistent. There are some great episodes, and there are also some really terrible ones. So I think a lot of it might be looking at something through rose-tinted glasses of the older stuff was better because it got better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And not because it always was that way. I will say that the sequel trilogy makes the prequels look like fucking masterpieces by comparison.
At least
the prequels were fucking Star Wars. The sequels, I'm not even sure that.
None of the Star Wars movies released under Disney have been Star Wars movies, unfortunately.
Rogue One is as close as it gets.
Rogue One is an imitation that's taken a lot of good ideas from the expanded universe, but has still changed them.
But I'll say that's the closest they got to a great Star Wars movie. And everything else is, Episode 7 had potential. Especially some of the characters they wrote, like Finn. Me and Fizz have talked about this at length. Finn could have been a great character. And they did nothing with him.
If you like Finn and wonder what happens to his character, just read the life of Kyle Katarn. Kyle Katarn is an ex-stormtrooper.
No, I mean, I don't need. I'm intimately familiar with Kyle Katarn. I played Dark Forces when it first came
One
out.
of my fucking favorite characters ever, man. It's not just the video games he's in. He's also in the books and in the comic.
No, I mean, some of the expanded universe. This is the thing for anyone who's watching who's not an older Star Wars fan. Read the expanded universe shit, and now you'll see why we're mad about half of this stuff, because not only are they butchering the actual Star Wars that we've seen on screen, they're basically taking stuff from the expanded universe
and bastardizing it.
And bastardizing
They've been
it to their own purposes.
I don't even want to think about this. It just drives me nuts.
Like the whole clone Palpatine thing, that happened.
And
in the expanded universe.
I love the expanded universe, but one of my least favorite things in the expanded universe is Dark Empire. But
yeah,
it's still the way they explain it and the way they set it up is so much better and so much better executed than anything.
Even if it's the same basic story, it's executed so much better.
I'll take the lamest of the expanded universe any day over
up against the best
Disney shit. And
look at the High Republic. We have fucking Geode. That's like the thing I hold up as like the pinnacle of shit that Disney Star Wars has created. So we have fucking Geode. He's a rock. Like not a force sensitive rock creature. A rock. And that's what we're supposed to fucking have for a character now. No, I just fucking refuse. Like, the Old Republic stuff was great. The High Republic stuff is fucking retarded.
All of this is retarded. All of it's retarded, and it has to get even more retarded. See, that's the problem I have with Star Wars fans. Is we had a huge opportunity for them to listen to us after Solo bombed, and people didn't. As soon as The Mandalorian came out, they just clapped like a bunch of seals and enjoyed it, and that was over. They were on the road.
At least for the first season, it was a good show.
It was for me. It was gruel. It was homogenized. Gruel.
It wasn't a good Star Wars show, but it was at least entertaining. And especially as someone who's now met Gina Carano personally. And she is just as sweet as you imagine. She's just a great person. Like everything you see about her on, from interviews and stuff, like she is just like that.
Oh, I like Gina Carano. I just don't like Cara Dune.
I like her character. I like how she portrays her. But the series itself, I think, has big problems. And I think those problems come to light a lot more, especially after she's gone. And I think a lot of it is the writing. They don't understand what Star Wars is.
They can't even keep their own continuity intact.
No, they can't.
They got rid of all the previous continuity that was established by the expanded universe, now rebranded Legends.
Mm-hmm.
They got rid of it to create a creative fresh slate, and then everything that would be made after would be completely in line.
If they had stuck with that and never taken anything from Legends or from the EU, I'd have been somewhat okay with that. But they seem to pick and choose from the EU.
And they've been
of characters and plot lines
the best,
and then they fuck it up.
They cherry picked with the Force Unleashed. I mean, not Force Unleashed. The Force Awakens. They cherry picked.
Mm-hmm.
Kylo Ren, his entire costume design is Revan. That's all Darth Raven.
Mostly Revan, yeah.
The ex-stormtrooper who defects, that's Kyle Katarn that they decided to race swap.
Yeah, and you know what? They could have done a lot of really good shit with that. And they chose not to. Because Kyle Katarn is a great character. And they could have made Finn into like a next-gen Kyle Katarn. But they chose not to. They chose to make him into Jar Jar.
Worse than Jar Jar. They made a black man the janitor.
Yeah.
And they called Lucas racist for Jar Jar when it wasn't. He was just a comic relief character. There was intentional racism with Finn and his depiction.
Oh, and
there's scenes where he's like bug-eyed and running and always screaming. I'm not the biggest fan of the kind of ethnic or even gender studies, but if you look through the lens of like African American studies and you look at that, that is an extraordinarily classic throwback to.
It's the old trope of the bumbling black man.
Yes, absolutely.
Which used to happen in theater a long time ago and was done away with because it was extremely patronizing.
Yes, it was. I mean, when I agree with Tyreek Nasheed over an issue, you done fucked up.
Yeah, like that's what, like, yeah, it's like that's when you know like people are fucked is when the far left and the center right are agreeing on something.
Exactly.
You know you fucked up.
Exactly.
And Fizz, like, I mean, you know what? I may Sentinel, I think those discussions might be best left for your channel.
Eventually. I'm going to get to that eventually.
Because that's more your bailiwick than mine.
It really is. And
or at least as far as my channel goes.
Yes. Absolutely.
We will have those discussions though. I mean, Fizz, you and me have talked about Star Wars at length. But I do, Sentinel, I'd love to actually have those conversations on your channel.
One of these days we will, or when I feel like it, because I'm so burnt out.
Yeah.
From bringing the shit up, it just gets me just.
And honestly, like being at Fan Expo this weekend brought it up where a lot of stuff I would love to have seen, like, you know, guys walking around as Darth Vader and stuff like that. It was cool as shit. But they have made me not give a shit about Star Wars. And that's a crime to me. Because it used to be you had to pull me away from Star Wars content.
I'm still into Star Wars. I still read the expanded universe. There's over 40 years of material that I'm still going through.
I still read the old comics.
That's not the problem. The problem I have is generations now.
Old Mike Stackpole and Timothy Zahn novels I read religiously.
And there's plenty more to choose from. I haven't even read this Michael Stackpole X-Wing novels, and I haven't read the Zahn books yet. I have the comic book versions of them. But what I'm saying is my biggest issue with Disney going forward is they have turned an entire generation and generations going forward into perverting what Star Wars really is. And their perception of Star Wars has been completely perverted as a result.
Because they've never seen the original trilogy.
whenever I talk about something Star Wars related, I get these idiot comments and questions from people who were brought up on the Disney Star Wars shit and maybe have seen the original trilogy, maybe the prequels, but have no clue or love and are being cultivated to, yeah, come in, be more of a fan, but make sure you have the correct politics, and make sure you know that this is what's going to be happening. This is our agenda.
Whereas, like, you know, bring it back to heavy metal, like I saw a show a couple years ago in 2019 with Dave Draymond from Disturbed. I saw Disturbed live, and he hit the nail on the head when he came out. He was just like, I don't give a fuck what your politics are. I don't give a fuck who you voted for. I don't give a fuck what you identify as. Tonight we are all brothers and sisters in metal. Let's fucking do this thing.
Yeah.
And that is the correct attitude.
That's the correct attitude.
Is
I would agree.
I don't give a shit
Draymond
about
himself
about anything else. And he himself is very liberal.
He's I would say he's very base. He's a very base.
He's a base progressive, I think.
Yeah.
Which is rare. An interesting thing to see about.
Yeah, I know. Pretty rare. It is.
But it's one of those. He's an anti-authoritarian progressive.
Yeah.
Which should not be surprising in the metal community.
I mean, if you were a progressive in the 90s, you were anti-authoritarian. Like my politics, I'm a 1990s Democrat, pretty much.
I mean, I'm kind of with Razor on a lot of things, or I'm a classical conservative.
Goldwater Republican, right?
Exactly. Where it's more of a constitutional, small government conservative. Less religious and more moral, based on what is good for the republic. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that is what we need.
Yes.
Is encouraging what we would call civic virtue. And encouraging people not only to be better citizens themselves, but encouraging those traits in others. And that's how a republic functions. Functions correctly, anyway. Because we not only believe in the system ourselves, we actively encourage the younger generation to believe in those things, and we embody those virtues ourselves because we have to. It's a very different system to how we currently operate, and it's something I wish we could get back to.
You know that old quote of the world you grew up in is no longer exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been hitting me in the feels, so to speak, lately. Really has.
It's been hitting me too, because I mean, not only did I grow up in the republic that we thought we did, I fought for it. I literally put my ass on the line to defend it.
That's right.
And now it doesn't even resemble the country I actually remember or grew up in.
Would you sign up and serve today with Biden in the office?
Absolutely not. And I would not recommend anyone do so, which is insane for me to say. I would not recommend anyone fight for this
regime.
Shameful fucking imitation of what America is supposed to be. And that's something for me, that is a huge indictment for a veteran to say, like, no, I would not support this current government. I would not support this current country. I hope it descends into dissolution, because something better will come of it.
Yes. I agree.
And unfortunately, I'm also a student of history, so I know how violent that is going to be. Which is why I have spent the last like 5 or 6 years trying to tell people that this is what's coming if we keep going the way we are. And unfortunately, I keep getting banned off of social media platforms for saying these things as a prediction, not as a hope. I never hope for violence against my own people, ever. But it's getting to the point where it might become necessary.
Not enough people are waking up like they should be at this point. They're so stuck in they're stuck in the matrix, basically.
Or they benefit from
Or they
the
benefit
current
from
structure. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to doom us in the end. I mean, there will be a better America that comes out of this in the long run, but it's going to be a long, very, very painful process.
And we're not going to see it.
Oh, we will.
You don't think we'll live to see it?
Oh, I think we absolutely will. I think we're going to be the ones who create it.
Amen to that.
It's just going to be a lot more, shall we say, forceful than we have been in the past.
January 6th was an insurrection. I don't get why people keep calling that an insurrection. Because I'm thinking of actual insurrection. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to go too far into it. Like for me, an actual insurrection is what happened on November in 2020. I think that is closer to an insurrection.
Well, I mean, when you want to talk about an actual insurrection against the government, the biggest example that should be brought up was April 19th, 1775. The Battle of Lexington. Beginning of the American Revolution. Because we had finally had the fuck enough of our governor and our governance. And even at that time, most of us didn't want to break from the crown. We didn't want to leave Great Britain. We were British. But the reaction to that and the things that kept happening, the circumstances around it, prevented us from even having a chance at a peaceful settlement with Britain. So we had to fucking break entirely and become our own thing. For the first time in world history, a colonial settlement had thrown off its governor and become an independent nation. And we did it just by our own pure determination and stubbornness. And I think that's how this is going to happen as well. Hopefully less violent. I really, really hope that that's the case. Because civil wars are never a nice thing.
No, they're not.
Neither was our first one. Whole bunches of people got hanged or shot or anything else for their political beliefs. And that was where the country was back then. And you know what? We're getting to that point again. And
The issue I see is
I'm not a fan of that,
no,
because
neither am I.
the
The
Civil
issue
War, the Civil War was the most brutal war we have ever fought, because it was against ourselves. And there are still lingering traces of that animosity to this day. You guys might not face it out on the West Coast, but the South has a very distinct animosity against, the Northeast, and they should. We were the ones who pushed the issue. And it led to war against our own people. And unfortunately, I see us doing the stupid things that led to that situation happening again, due to pure incompetence and rhetoric this time.
I'm just thinking of their side has all the pussies, and let me put it this way. If war breaks out and their side had to take up arms on fight, they lose immediately. But the thing that they have is they have the military already under their command.
Well, here's the thing. We know they're military. We trained their. I mean, we are the military. We're better than they are, and they know it.
They'll continue to use the police and military against us until the police and military side with us.
They'll try to fight a counterinsurgency campaign against guys who have fought against an insurgency for 20 years. We are far better insurgents than they are counterinsurgents. And trust me, if we come off the bench, like my generation of veterans come off the bench and start getting involved, it's going to get bad. It's going to get very, very bad, fucking bad.
Good.
Because there is no leash on us anymore.
And you guys are already sick of this. I mean, I'm saying collectively, we are already sick of this.
Yeah, and then you have a bunch of guys who have
the experience fighting insurgents. So it's like, it's like everything you've learned.
Any counterinsurgent is also a trained insurgent, because we have to know how they operate in order to counter them. So we got trained in those tactics, and we know what works and what doesn't.
That 1776 sequel is going to be epic.
I'm hoping it doesn't need to happen. I really, really am. Like, for all those who are like, oh, well, you're just like an extremist. Like, no, I'm saying this because I want to avoid it. All of this shit I want to avoid. I want people to live happy and peace with each other in our country, at the very fucking least. But I don't see that in the cards right now. And if it gets bad enough, guys like me are going to come off the bench, and then everyone's going to fucking regret it. Because I know me and my boys. Mercy is not something we do. But we're getting way off the topic here. But no, Celtic Frost was... I mean, they did fall off pretty hard after this. They were a huge influence on the black metal scene, especially the second wave. And man, I wish we had Imperatus here because he's much more of a second wave fan than I am. So he could, go into all the influences that they had and all that kind of shit. But as it is, that's what we know about the band. And I do quite enjoy a lot of their albums. I wouldn't say they're my favorite band, but I do enjoy a lot of their stuff. Sentinel. How do you feel about these guys?
I think I'm going to enjoy listening to them for the next couple weeks for sure.
All right. And that's what we do here. We encourage listening to either stuff you've heard before or stuff you've never heard.
And I've heard of Celtic Frost. I know their reputation, but I've never been well versed in the music. So getting to know a little bit about it from somebody who obviously has is...
Yeah. And this is why I do what I do. And for those of you who are of the opinion that I am just a heavy metal encyclopedia, I am not. I listen to these albums religiously, like from the moment our last episode ends up until we do the next one. I listen to all of it, day in, day out, repeatedly. So what I appear to be an expert on is because I have just binged everything that they've done. And also I try to do some research and try to do that. It's my method of, appearing competent. And these guys are hugely influential. And I actually had listened to them before. I just needed to go through and listen to them again with a more critical ear. And are they the greatest metal band ever formed? No. But they are very influential towards the genre. And with that, I think we're going to wrap this one up. Sentinel, what do you got going on this week, man?
I'm busy again, totally busy. But you can still find me on YouTube, the Sentinel. Just type in the Sentinel, you'll see me pop up, and you can find me on Instagram at the Sentinel43.
All right. And as for me, you will see me on 70s Rock Band's channel tomorrow, talking about The Towering Inferno, which is a great disaster movie from the late 1970s. And other than that, you'll see me every week here for Rock and Roll Religion. And I may be doing a lot more individual content in terms of not pre-recorded necessarily, pre-recorded reviews and stuff like that of just things I enjoyed that I think you guys might want to hear about. So keep an eye out for that. But with that being said, this has been a great conversation. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. But with that being said, stay healthy, stay safe. I love you all. And I'll catch you next time.